Hi kids, welcome to our fourth week in our lesson in Science Grade 4. So are you ready? So for this week, we're going to discuss more about physical and chemical change. So last time, we already talked about it a little bit in our class last week. And for this week, we're going to focus on physical and chemical change. Are you ready? Okay, so going back again, we talked about materials and their uses, and last week we focused on flammability, degradable, and biodegradable. So let's have our objectives for this week's lesson. First, we need to describe changes in matter that involve physical change and chemical change. Investigate to show how changes in properties of materials occur when exposed to very high or very low temperatures. And we need to cite situations wherein phase change is beneficial. For day 1, we're going to review matter and its phases. Matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. It can exist in different states, such as solid, liquid, or gas, and can be composed of various elements and compounds. Matter is all around us, from the air that we breathe to the food that we eat. Even objects that we may not be able to see, like the atoms and molecules that make up those objects, are still considered matter. Now let's take a look at it one by one. Let's start with solid. Imagine you have a bunch of marbles. You can put them in a box, and they'll stay in the shape of the box. That's because marbles are solid. Solids have definite shape and volume. Solids have a fixed shape and volume. Their particles are tightly packed together in a regular, repeating pattern called a crystal lattice. So, as you can see, we have an example. We have pebbles and rocks as an example of solid. So, it has its own shape and volume. Now, let's go and take a look at liquid. Liquids have a fixed volume but take the shape of their container. Their particles are close together but can move around more freely than in solids. So they have a definite volume. Even though liquids can change shape, they still take up the same amount of space. If you pour the bouncy balls into a bigger bowl, they'll still take up the same amount of space, just spread out more. So our example is water. Okay, and for gas, they don't have a definite shape. The bouncy balls will fill up the whole room, no matter what shape the room is. Gases do the same thing. They spread out to fill whatever space they're in. They don't have a definite volume. If you add more bouncy balls to the room, they'll just spread out even more. Gases are like that too. They can be squeezed into smaller spaces or spread out to fill larger spaces. Okay, let's ponder on this. Matter undergoes various changes when exposed to changes in temperature, which can be classified as either physical or chemical. In the next phase of the lesson, you will be able to know and understand how these changes in matter happen. It could be a change in its internal structure or physical appearance. It may also result in the formation of new materials when they are mixed. But before we head on to our lesson, let's unscramble the words first. Although we have here the answer, but then, okay, we are going to try to describe and explain quickly this meaning. Okay, so we have number 1, it is to make or become different. And the answer is change. Then, number 2, it is a measure of how hot or cold something is. It is temperature. And we all know that some matter can be affected by the temperature that they are in. So if it's too cold, they can freeze. For example, an ice cube, it can be affected by the temperature of a place. Okay, for example, if it is too hot, if you have an ice cube, it will melt. And if it's too cold, it will freeze. So we're going to talk more about that later on. And for number 3, we have perishable. It's a type of food with a limited shelf life if it's not refrigerated. Okay, so perishable, it means it will not last long, no, if the food is not refrigerated. It will be spoiled. Okay, now the next one is, it's a process in which one or more substances, the reactants, are converted to one or more different substances, the products. Okay, so the answer is chemical reaction. Okay, and another one, it is this chemical reaction that occurs between substances when materials burn, and it is combustion. Okay, so we have here changes in matter. So we need to take a look at it, and because this is also very important. Changes in matter refer to the physical or chemical transformations that take place when a substance undergoes a modification. These changes can occur in any of the 3 states of matter. Solid, liquid, or gas. And they can be brought about by a variety of factors, including changes in temperature, pressure, or chemical composition. So, these factors might affect, the states of matter of an object. So, perhaps from solid, it will turn to liquid. From liquid, it will turn to solid. And for example, from liquid, it will turn to gas. So, ito ay nangyayari, no, kapag may mga factors na nakakaapekto, no? Kumbaga, ito yung mga nakakaapekto sa pagbabago ng phases ng matter ng isang bagay. So, this could be temperature, no? Yung hotness or coldness. We also have the pressure and chemical composition. So, let's talk about that more on day 2. For day 2, we're going to focus on the physical changes in matter. Okay, when we talk about physical change in matter, it involves a change in one or more physical properties of a substance, such as its shape, size, or state of matter, without changing its chemical composition. Meaning to say, ang nagbabago lang ay yung, kumbaga, appearance lang niya, no? Body composition lang. Pero yung chemical composition, for example, ng food, for example, yung banana, no? Hinati natin siya. Chinop natin siya into several pieces, no? Nagbago yung shape and yung size ng banana, pero yung chemical composition or yung nutrients inside the banana is still the same. Same thing with apple, with carrots, no? Chinop lang natin yung fruits and vegetables, so nag-change yung kanyang physical appearance, but yung composition, chemical composition ng fruits and vegetables na yon will never change. Okay, unlike the chemical change which involved the formation of new substances. Physical changes can often be reversed by changing the condition that caused the change. Okay, so pwede pa raw bumalik, no? So, depende, no, yung, kumbaga, dun sa condition na kung saan nandoon yung isang specific na substance. So, Let's further discuss. We have the characteristics of physical change in matter. So, no new substances form. Meaning to say, one of the defining features of physical change is that they do not result in the creation of entirely new substance. Ibig sabihin, for example, in this picture, we have the carrots, no? Pag chinap mo yung carrots, it will still be carrots. Hindi siya naging apple. Hindi siya naging banana. Hindi naging potato yung carrots. No? So, no new substances was formed, no, upon chopping the carrots. Now, in terms of change in state, this occurs when substance transitions between solid, liquid, or gas states due to changes in temperature or pressure. Next, change in appearance. Physical changes often involve alteration in the substance's appearance, texture, or shape. So, gaya nung ating in-explain kanina, ang nagbabago lang ay yung kanyang appearance, no? Yung texture or yung shape. Pero yung chemicals, composition ng specific na substance na yon, or for example, the carrots or the vegetable or the fruits is still the same. So, hindi nagbago. Hindi nagkaroon ng panibagong substance once na nagkaroon halimbawa ng halimbawa, yung carrots, no? Kapag nainitan siya, no? Hindi naman siya nag-change into another vegetable. So, hindi nag-form ng new substance. Hindi tayo nagkaroon ng panibagong substance kahit pa nagkaroon na o nagdaan, no, sa certain factors like heat or coldness yung isang bagay. So we have here some examples of physical change. Okay, we have here changing from solid to liquid state without altering its composition. Okay, so for example, butter, no, nagmelt yung butter. Pero nag-change lang siya ng state from solid to liquid, pero yung chemical composition ng butter is still the same. Another example is transforming from liquid to gaseous state through heat. Pinakuluan yung water, no, yung water naging or yung liquid naging gas. But still, ganun pa rin yung kanyang chemical composition. Next, altering the shape of the can without changing the materials it's made of. So, same thing, no? Nagbago lang siya ng itsura, nagbago ng shape, pero still, yung chemical composition is the same. Okay, now, let's talk about melting. So, what is melting? Melting is a process where a solid turns into a liquid when it gets warm enough or when we naglagay tayo ng heat, no? Okay. So, when something melts, it becomes soft and turns into a liquid. For example, when ice cream melts, it becomes liquid instead of being hard like ice. So, when we put something into heat, no? Kapag naglagay tayo ng heat sa isang bagay, so especially kapag solid, like for example, ice cubes, butter, or ice cream, no? It will turn into, at first it becomes soft and eventually turns into a liquid state. Okay, so let's have examples of melting. So, ice melting. One common example of melting is when ice cubes are left outside on a warm day. As the sun shines on them or the temperature gets warmer, the ice cube starts to melt and turn into water. Now, chocolate melting. Another example is when you heat chocolate in a microwave or over a stove. The solid chocolate turns into a liquid, making it easier to spread or used for making desserts like chocolate-covered strawberries. And another example of melting is candle wax melting. When you light a candle, the heat from the flame melts the wax. The melted wax then drips down the candle, creating a pool of liquid wax that fuels the flame. So, natutunaw yung kandila kapag sinisindihan natin, di ba? And then kapag nawala na yung heat, no, it will turn again into a solid form. Now, kapag gusto mo na siya ulit i-form, no, or i-mold again into a new shape, so definitely, you're just going to heat it up, no, and then ilalagay mo na siya sa maayos na for example, molding cup, or kung meron kang molding tray, no, or molding rubber, or what do you call that, and then kapag lumamig na siya, it will become candle again. Okay, so let's have real life applications of melting. Cooking. Melting is used in cooking to transform solid ingredients into liquids. For example, butter is melted before adding it to cake batter, or melted cheese is used as a topping for nachos. Making popsicles. Melting is involved in making popsicles. You pour liquid juice or flavored water into the molds and then freeze them. When you take them out of the freezer and let them sit, the popsicle starts to melt, turning back into liquid. Another thing is recycling. Melting is used to recycle metals like aluminum and steel. Scrap metal is melted down at high temperatures to make new products like aluminum cans or steel beams instead of throwing it away. And another one would be art and crafts. Melting can be used in art and craft projects. For example, crayons can be melted and poured into molds to make new crayons with different shapes or colors. Understanding melting helps us understand how things change from solid to liquid when they get warm. This process is useful in our daily lives, whether we're cooking, playing, or even recycling. Now, let's have evaporation. So, what is evaporation? Evaporation is when the liquid turns into gas, no? So, kanina, melting, we have solid to liquid. Now, we have here evaporation, wherein liquid turns into gas. This happens when the liquid gets warm enough. So, again, nag-apply tayo ng heat. And its molecules move so fast that they escape into the air as vapor. You can think of it like tiny invisible water particles flying away from a bottle, a cup of water, or even wet clothes when they're left out to dry. We have examples of For real-life applications, we have swimming pool evaporation. We also have drying wet surfaces. Water cycle. We all know that evaporation is a crucial part of the water cycle. When the sun heats up bodies of water like oceans, rivers, and lakes, water evaporates into the air. This water vapor rises, cools down, and forms clouds. Later, when the clouds get heavy with water, it falls back to the ground as rain, snow, or hail. We also have making salt. Evaporation is also important in producing salt. Okay, ever heard of sea salt? It's made by evaporating seawater. When seawater is left out in the sun, the water evaporates, leaving behind salt crystals. These crystals are collected and cleaned to make the salt we use in cooking. Now, understanding evaporation helps us know how water moves from one place to another, changes form, and even helps make some of the things we use every day. So again, we started with melting, from solid to liquid, and then evaporation, liquid to gas. Now, the next one is freezing. Okay, so what is freezing? Freezing occurs when liquid turns into solid. So from liquid state, now it becomes solid by means of freezing. So when it gets cold enough. Imagine water turning into ice when it's left in the freezer or outside on a cold winter day. The cold slows down the molecules in the liquid, making them stick together and form a solid. So remember, after we heated an ice cube or we left the ice cube under the sun, so it melted, right? So from solid, it becomes liquid now. No, kapag na lumamig na, okay, lumamig na yung paligid, hindi na mainit. Now, eventually, this liquid will now turn into solid again. So, like butter. Or, for example, yung mga fat, no? For example, yung kapag nagluto si mama ng bulalo, no? Na baka, no? Yung fat na content ng baka, kapag niluto siya, no? Nagiging liquid, right? 'Di ba? Pag nag-boil yung water, nagiging liquid yung fat. But then, no, kapag malamig na, no, kapag hinainan na tayo ng bulalo na malamig, parang hindi na natin gusto. Why? Kasi nakikita na natin yung sebo o yung fat, no? Yung liquid na fat before nung mainit na ang sarap-sarap higupin. Now, dahil hindi na siya mainit, no, nag-turn na siya into sebo or naging solid na yung fat nung coming from the beef, no? So, parang ganon siya. Now, that is when liquid turns into solid. So, nagiging ganon once nagkaroon or kapag ang environment niya ay malamig. We have examples of freezing, making ice cubes. Kanina, melting ice. Now, ngayon naman, making ice cubes. One common example of freezing is making ice cubes. You pour water into an ice cube tray and put it in the freezer. The water freezes and turns into solid ice cubes as the water gets cold. So, same thing with freezing popsicles and ice cream. No? So, have you ever seen an ice cream machine at an ice cream shop? It works by freezing a mixture of cream, sugar, and flavors while stirring it. This makes creamy ice cream that you can enjoy on a hot day. So, for real-life applications, we have preserving food. So, it is very important, no? Freezing is one way of preserving food. And it keeps or it helps keep the food fresh for longer periods of time, like fish and meat. You can freeze fruits, vegetables, meat, and leftovers to prevent them from spoiling. This way, you can enjoy your favorite foods even if you can't eat them right away. So, for example, si mama and papa natin, no? They go to market on weekends. And syempre, hindi naman lahat ng kanilang binili sa palengke ay lulutuin nila that day, di ba? So, they will go to market to buy food good for 1 week, for example. And yung food na hindi nila lulutuin for the rest of the week, ay they will store it first in a freezer para fresh pa rin siya kapag niluto on the next day or the day na lulutuin na nila, no? So, that is one of the examples of freezing. So, keeping cool, transporting perishable goods o yung mga madaling masira na pagkain, no? Para hindi siya masira, kailangan malamig, no? In places where it's hard to keep fresh food, like during long journeys in remote areas. So, especially kapag tinatransport. For example, yung fish, di ba? Galing siya sa ocean, sa dagat, and then dadalhin sa market. So, we need to apply freezing, no? Para keep yung freshness ng fish. Then, making frozen treats. So, same thing like yung creating ice creams and popsicles. Understanding freezing helps us know how liquids can change into solids when they get cold, and it's useful for keeping food fresh, staying cool, and making tasty treats, no? So, ganun kahalaga yung freezing. Kasi, ito yung isa sa nagbibigay sa atin ng ice cream, and it makes us cool, no? O sometimes, no, kapag sobrang init, no? But of course, not to the point na mag-freeze naman tayo. Alright, so freezing is very important, especially in preserving food. Now, let's have some questions that I would like you to answer. So, what happened to the ice cubes when placed directly under the sun? Now, what do you call this process? No? When you place ice cube under the sun, it will melt. Now, what do you call this process? So, again, no, kapag for some solids, kapag nag-apply tayo ng heat, it will turn into liquid, and that process is called melting. Now, what happened to the wet handkerchief when placed directly under the sun? So, the wet handkerchief will dry, and that process is called evaporation. So, nag-evaporate yung water from the wet handkerchief, and kapag nag-evaporate na yung water, no, nagda-dry na, nagiging dry na yung handkerchief. Now, what happened to the water inside the plastic bag after leaving in the freezer overnight? So, nag-freeze, no? And the process is called freezing. Okay, so let's have our day 3. And on day 3, we're going to focus on chemical changes in matter. Now, chemical changes in matter involve a change in the chemical composition of a substance, resulting in the formation or one or more new substances, no? So, dun sa physical change, no, yung outer appearance lang o yung appearance lang and size and yung shape lang yung nagbago. But then, when we talk about chemical change, nagbago yung chemical composition ng substance and resulting in forming a new or another substance. Chemical changes are usually irreversible. When we say irreversible, for example, from solid, naging liquid siya or naging gas, hindi na siya babalik ulit sa dati niyang state. Unlike sa physical change natin kanina, for our example, a while ago, no, yung liquid na naging, for example, yung solid na naging liquid, pwede pa rin siyang maging solid again. No? So, and in chemical changes are usually irreversible and involve the breaking and forming of chemical bonds between atoms or molecules. Here are some of the characteristics of chemical change. Formation of new substances. This is due to the breaking and forming of chemical bonds between atoms and molecules. Irreversibility. The original substances cannot be restored through simple physical processes. So, hindi siya basta-basta nababalik sa dati, no? By means of physical or simple physical processes. So, kailangan, if you need to reverse it, no? You need to apply, no? Some chemical processes na. Magiging complex na yung pagbabalik niya into original state. Now, change in properties. This can include alterations in color, odor, taste, and even the production of gas or precipitate. Okay, for day 4, we are going to have our takeaways. Alright? So, for this activity, you're going to create a graphic organizer on what you have learned in the lesson. So, just like the graphic organizer below. So changes in materials, we have physical and chemical change. Okay, so it's the same. For physical change, we have melting solid to liquid, evaporation liquid to gas, and freezing liquid to solid. Then for chemical change, we have formation of charcoal, rust formation, production of smoke, formation of ash, and formation of bubbles, which leads to formation of new materials. So again, these are some important terms that you need to remember for this lesson. So for physical changes or alterations in the appearance or state of substance without changing its chemical composition. In other words, the substance remains the same at the molecular level before and after the change. Physical change can involve changes in state, solid, liquid, and gas, and its shape, size, or phase. So now let's have again melting. So this time you can now just read by yourself, no? It's just, again, ito lang din yung diniscuss natin a while ago. So this is just the summary of what we had a while ago. So after melting, no, from solid to liquid, we have the evaporation, liquid to gas. We also had freezing, this time from liquid to solid. We also discussed chemical changes. Okay, we also have evidence of chemical change. And for your assessment, kindly read each question carefully and identify the letter of the correct answer. All right. Did you got the perfect score? Okay, I hopefully so. Okay, so here's some ice cream. Hey, thank you for listening and sparing your 30 minutes with me. And I hope you learned something new from our lesson for this week. So this is Teacher Isa. I hope to be with you, and I hope you'll be with me again for the next week. So thank you and goodbye.